Hey guys, I'm back to talk about a project idea. So the idea is to essentially create an RPG game which is called a tiled RPG. So the premise of this game is there's a princess and she's in trouble and a dragon is trying to attack her in the castle right now and we need to save her or she's gonna die. You know, it's one of those classic save the princess kind of games. So the player is a wizard in training, and they're given an epic quest to slay a dragon and save the princess by the village's grand wizard. So think some guy who looks like Gandalf. He gave him a quest. We're gonna go off. We're gonna save the princess. Unlike Mario, the princess will be in this castle. Okay, so good thing, right? In order to save the princess, you gotta go through a series of dungeons to get to the room where the dragon is located. In navigating through the dungeons, the player must face a series of enemies and avoid traps throughout the dungeon. So that's how the game's gonna work, and I think it'll be a really exciting way to give us a finished product and to teach us more of the object-oriented game programming things that we are trying to instill in us. So this is going to be an object-oriented game which is programmed in Java using the libgdx game library. If you don't know what any of that stuff means, don't worry, you're going to be fine. So the outline, so if you're an experienced programmer and you kind of want to know like when to kind of drop in, if you don't know Java, I guess any of these are going to be great, but I would recommend jumping in at the point where we start like drawing things on the screen so you can get experience with libgdx. So the first tutorial is called Gear Up. You've already watched that one probably, or if you haven't, you should watch it after this video. It's going to show you how to install all the software you need to have stuff for this project. It'll be libgdx, your Java SDK, your Android SDK, and your clip stuff, which they kind of come in the same package. The next thing we're gonna do, the next video, is Hello World. This is when we're actually gonna do something with code. I'm gonna do my Hello World a little bit differently than other people do. Usually they just like print one line out on the screen and it's like, yay, we just did our first program. No, I'm going to actually teach us how to make some objects and how to get them to do things. So, and then we're going to print out a first line. So we're going to totally have an explanation for everything as we go on. Because I did the Hello World in my classes and I was just like, yeah, this is cool, but I have no idea what I just typed in to make this magical series of characters appear in my output screen. So I'm going to hopefully explain to you guys what an object is. It's going to be a little bit slower, a little bit more roundabout than the traditional Hello World, but I think it should be good. So next, after we finish getting some code to do something, you know, that's like really exciting, we're going to actually draw a sprite on the screen. Excuse my art skills during this tutorial because they're pretty bad. So we're going to get something to draw on the screen and that'll be cool. After we draw it on the screen, I'm going to show you guys how to move it around and then do things like power-ups, which is something also known as collision detection. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to test our game. So what does that mean? We're actually going to write unit tests for our game. How exciting, right? That doesn't sound exciting at all, right, Andre? Yeah, it really doesn't sound too exciting. But it's something that I think is pretty important that any programmer should start learning. I've noticed that during my time at school, I'm about to graduate soon, and I haven't taken any classes on software testing, and I'm not going to, looking at my graduation requirements right now. So this is something that I've learned through internships and whatnot, that it is pretty important to learn, and starting testing early on in a software project is something that you will learn is really important. It's something called test-driven development. So more on that later. After we create some tests for the player and whether or not he's hitting a power-up, we're going to create an enemy that will just simply be able to move around on the screen, which we'll show after we create the enemies. So the enemies will be created, and I'm going to also add here that we're going to spawn them. Spawn enemies around the player and have them just show up on the screen. So then we're going to, so this whole spawning enemies deal is going to allow us to probably talk about things like lists and what is the best way to go about handling multiple things when they're going to show up on the screen. Okay? And then, so the next tutorial is how to move an enemy around, which is also known as artificial intelligence, I guess. It's really basic artificial intelligence. We'll give the enemy a little pattern for him to move, and he'll move in his little pattern, and we'll be on our way. So pretty exciting. After we have an enemy moving around, we have a player that we can control. We're gonna be able to probably kill that enemy somehow with the player. We're going to work on adding a tile map to our game. So for those of you who are not familiar with tile maps, let me pull up an example real quick. So here is an example of what a tile map looks like. It is simply so if we see right here, what it is a bunch of squares which contain little pictures of things that are going to appear in your game, and each tile essentially corresponds to a number. So like this tile right here corresponds to the number 0, and if we had like a grid of things, and anytime the number 0 appeared, tile number 0, that image would be wherever the number 0 is located. So imagine all these things as a grid of squares which have numbers inside them, and every time that number appears, we're going to put the numbers associated with that object in there. We'll get more into that later, and it's basically how most of your classic 2D games are implemented. There's a lot of interesting stuff that we can do with collisions, and I think that's pretty exciting as well. So after we do the tile map stuff, we're going to notice that our code base is getting pretty big, right? So I wanted to give us some time to look at our code and analyze like how it's going, and do something called refactoring, right? This is something that usually happens constantly during the software development process, but I wanted to dedicate a video to it and let us all focus on, hey, this is how we approach software that we've written all up to this point, but we can clean it up and make it look nicer to a software developer. So it's something that's important that I think everyone should learn. I've never really had a tutorial directly on refactoring, so I'm going to have an interesting time figuring out how to present it to you guys. So I think that's going to be exciting for me as well as you guys. And then after that, our game will be essentially done. Like you have something to show to mom and dad right now. Hey mom, look at this cool thing that I just made, right? That'll be pretty exciting, right? But there's a couple more things you can do, like adding a menu to your game, managing your game states, like whether or not your game's paused in a certain menu and whatnot. Those are gonna kind of go together. So I'm gonna actually move them together. So adding a menu and managing game states. After we manage the states of the game, we'll work on saving and loading the game. So if like the player reaches a certain point in the game, we can then so since we have things like power-ups, and it can check with like collisions between certain squares, we'll be able to make a square which will allow you to save the game when we collide with it. So that'll be pretty cool. The next thing we're going to cover is going to be animating your characters. Again, you're going to have to excuse my terrible art skills. I'll probably just look for some open sprites for us, because I cannot draw for the life of me, but we will cover the general programming concepts of how to animate a sprite. And then after we cover animation, we will think about how to go about adding a cutscene to our game. There's probably multiple ways that we can really go about it, but it's something that I actually haven't really done in my games. I just kind of have the player start off somewhere, but we'll add a cutscene and make it look really nice and have a nice, I guess, intro and finale video of our game. So anyways, this is our whole project that we're going to go through within the course of, I'd say, let's say 3 months. I wanted to do a month for this whole tutorial series, but I think that's going to be a little bit ambitious. So over the next 3 months, I'm going to have all these videos out to you guys. It's gonna take a little while for me to just edit these and make sure that they're all up to the quality that I believe that they should be. So thanks for watching. Hope you guys are ready for our new project that we're gonna do.